Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Kent with Bent 127, I think?
Yeah.
127? Yeah, we already have a drink for Dapper as a professional because I forgot to put the video on at the beginning, so, you had a few seconds of looking at Bent's face here before the actual intro started, which is, it was great.
Yay.
Yeah, but hey, at least we're not muted right now, so there is that.
Well, that's good.
It is, yes. I am, before anyone asks, I am drinking some eggnog because, again, the stores decided to stop stocking eggnog before Christmas is even over because it is the 10th day of Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate New Calendar Christmas. To the rest of you, of course, Happy Tuesday. I hope the rest of your week is great. So yeah, I went to the store and I bought some cloves and I ground them up and I got some milk and some egg yolks, but I got my ratios a little bit off because I forgot to actually make the eggnog until like 2 hours ago, and I was in a rush and I wasn't measuring very well, so like it's a little bit too eggy. It's not quite enough milk. I didn't do a great job tempering it, so it's okay, right? It's fine, but it's not great. That being said, it is still pretty good. It's got some fresh ground cloves in there, a bunch of cinnamon, a bunch of nutmeg, a bunch of sugar, a bunch of brandy. So, yeah. And then for afterwards, still using the brandy, I made some brandy and lemonade, which is a surprisingly good combination. I was skeptical when I read online that was a thing that people did, and then I had some, and I was like, okay, no, I get it. It works. We have a couple things to read before we get into it. One, actually, no, I guess we have three things. Nope, just two to read. Off Journey says AIG is a gorgeous galleon gushing with gargantuan gargoyle gars. All right, take a drink. Here's a fun thing. The word gar is the Old English word for spear, and a garfish is a spearfish because of how, long and pointy they are. And it is the only place where the word gar for spear actually persists. But if you read like the opening lines to Beowulf in Old English, what way Gardena means, the Gardena means spear Danes. So the people from Denmark carrying spears, spearmen from Denmark. That's what Gardena means. Anyway, that's just a cool little thing there. And we also have from DM pour out one vegan nog for my homie's wing for $2 says, I'll live dinosaur in 2024. Godzilla, are you Behemoth? I am not Behemoth, nor am I Godzilla, nor is Godzilla Behemoth, but I will take a drink. You don't really think about the cloves in eggnog until you make some practice eggnog like a week ago that doesn't have cloves, and you're like, something's missing. Yeah, it's the cloves.
Yeah, cloves are necessary.
They really, really are. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Like, a mixture of, like, milk, cream, egg yolks, and sugar with cinnamon and nutmeg, it's still good. It just doesn't have that little kick from the cloves. Anyway, yes, this is the first stream of 2024, if you're using that newfangled new calendar. Otherwise, it's still, like, December 20th or something? I don't know. Look, the old calendar is confusing. Alex Markle says, so it wasn't the vegan nog's fault? So I'll just say this. From almost immediately after the last Tuesday show, until basically, like, yesterday morning, I had decreasing amounts of stomach cramps, but they started out pretty intense. And so basically I spent pretty much the entire week I took off very uncomfortable for the entire time. It was...
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I've had eggnog before and after, and not had that increase or start any such things. I don't think it's that it was vegan. I think it might be that it was almonds. I think I might have an almond thing now. So, yeah. Because, I mean, how could it be that it's vegan, right? Like, I eat vegan food all the time, right? Anytime I eat just, like, some mixed vegetables with some salt and pepper, I'm eating vegan food. So, yeah. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that it was vegan, or even just that it was a milk alternative, because I've had lots of soy milk and never had a problem. And also, actual, like, what do you call it? What's that thing? Tofu. I've had lots of tofu, never had a problem with it.
Lots of tofu.
Yeah. Tofu is one of my regular proteins that I buy. Anyway, so we're not really here to talk about eggnog. We're not here to talk about lemonade. We're not here to talk about almond milk. None of that. We're actually here to talk about Kent Hovind, which, I mean, we should just get through, right? Because it's not like he's going anywhere. So before we get to that, though, we do this as a bit of a drinking stream. As you can see, there's already 3 drinks up there. Two of the drink triggers that you've already seen are that if anyone super chats any of the kaiju emojis, which include Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, we will take a drink for that. I will demonstrate them right now. So there you go. Those are the 3 kaiju emojis. That's for super chats or milestone chats. If anyone super chats or milestone chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks, we'll take a drink for that too. We have a handy emoji just for that, which is a bag with not cucumbers, with eggplants in it, that is labeled AIG. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind says something that's just too stupid, and we kind of need to cool our brains off. We'll also take a drink if he actually gets something factually accurate. We'll take a drink if he tells a joke that doesn't land, or a story that didn't happen. For instance, if he tells us about that one time that he met a totally real, you guys, professor from Berkeley on an airplane who apparently doesn't know anything about anything, and he stumped him in a conversation about evolution and the Big Bang. Yeah, we're going to take a drink for that, especially if everyone clapped at the end. Now, that is a bit of a judgment call. We can't always go and verify, but if it seems like something that you would find on, like, r/that happened, yeah, we're taking a drink for it. We'll also take a drink if we can predict what Kent Hovind is about to say. So if Bent or I can figure out what his next point is going to be, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink for something called a Trojan source. Now, Kent Hovind is not one to cite a whole lot of sources that we can easily check, but if he does, and we check, and the source not only fails to confirm his point, but instead actively contradicts it, that's what we call a Trojan source. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind does what we call a ad hominid, which is basically anytime he says that we don't know something about a wider group of animals than just, the specific individual Lucy, because of what was or wasn't found on Lucy, that's an ad hominem. So if he says something like, well, we don't know if Australopithecus afarensis had an inline big toe because we don't see any we don't have any toe bones for Lucy. That's an ad hominem because we do have toe bones for other Australopithecines. Also, Jillian, the entire column is igneous ran member for 10 months, who's at the amniote level, says AIG is an agonizing attaché case of almond appendages. Oh, man. Stupid almonds. Which sucks, because I really like wasabi almonds. I'll take a drink for it. Just some wasabi powder coating almonds. Oh,
That's pretty tasty.
It is really. So, I might not be able to have them anymore, though. Which kind of suck. Anyway. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions the leadership in Germany in like the 1940s, or any of their prominent members of that political group, or any of their more infamous activities from like the middle of the 20th century. Take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if you guys gift memberships. Right where you normally would send super chats, there's also an option to gift memberships. Memberships are a great way to get more people involved in the community. You can, if you're a member, you can get access to early access for videos. You can join the Discord server that's just for members and patrons. And also, if you give someone a membership, it doesn't actually cost them anything, and all they get are a couple reminders, an email on YouTube when they get the membership, and also when their membership is about to expire or has expired. They don't have to provide any payment information. There's no like auto renewal that charges them money or anything. So I think it's a fun way to just have some spread the love a little bit. Savage Pharaoh's favorite close point cobra. Oh, you guys are gonna kill me with these. For $5 says, on the 8th day of Christmas, Kent gave us the 8 quotes of my name. Very nice. Yeah, and also we do have fundraising goals. If we get enough in new members, we get to memberships and super chats, we might get Bent to wear a tutu next week.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A pink tutu?
Yes, a pink tutu. And if we meet a much higher funding goal, we might get me to wear a pink tutu over my human suit and have the human suit be on camera.
That's a good deal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an expensive deal, but it's a good one. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, I do want to say, if you do participate in the drinking game, please be careful, know your limits. You do not have to use alcohol. You can play along with a vape pen, juice, tea, coffee, water, soda, whatever you want. You can just, do fist bumps. I don't care. Just be safe if you use an intoxicating substance. Don't go and, drive, operate heavy machinery, text your ex. Don't do any of these things. And neither I nor Bent nor Dapper Dino Channel as a whole accept liability or responsibility for anything that you do as a result of you not being careful with your inebriating substance consumption. With that out of the way, Bent, I think it is time for us to actually get more of this Kenthoven stuff in here.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost done. We only have 11 minutes left in this video.
Nice.
They're going to try to present them some evidence.
They is just scientists and people who write biology textbooks.
Now we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at the evidence that is presented and how it doesn't really hold up to scientific inquiry.
I just love the idea that Kenthoven is someone who can provide scientific inquiry. Like, okay, sure thing, Kent.
It's outdated, false information. It's been proven wrong a long time ago, but they still keep it in the books today to try to get the kids to believe in this silly theory. Then they tell the kids the theory of evolution is based upon natural selection.
I mean, that's an important part of the theory of evolution. I wouldn't quite say it's based on that, because, there's a lot of foundational aspects to evolution, right? Like the fact that there is such a thing as a genome, and that genomes provide the mechanism of inheritance, and that this inheritance affects the phenotype, the actual traits of the organism, and then that there are variations in this. Because remember, variation and selection are the two main aspects of Darwin's hypothesis that became itself foundational for what is modern evolutionary biology. There we go. So to say, like, it's based on natural selection I would just say it's overly reductive. It's not out and out wrong, but it's kind of like saying, the alphabet is based on consonants. It's like, well, I mean, that is most of it. There are far more consonant letters in the Latin alphabet than there are letters for vowels, but like, you can't just leave out the vowels. I mean, I guess you can, but like, that's a big part of a lot of the use of the Latin alphabet. My unfinished journey my unfinished chapter 1. Sorry, I looked at the ellipsis and filled it in from memory, but now I look and see that is not what it says anymore. My unfinished chapter 1 for $2 says AIG is a huge handle bag of hilarious horse hoses. All right, take a drink. My goodness, this eggnog is like a meal. When you make eggnog, you become acutely aware of just how much fat and sugar is in a glass of eggnog, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Now let's just discuss all this here. Evolution theory is basically based upon two faulty assumptions. Number one, They assume that a mutation will make something new.
I mean, it's a novel change in the DNA that can create an allele that was never there. Like, how could it logically not create something new? What would that... I'm just going to take a drink for, like, I don't even know how it could possibly be any other way.
Yeah, I don't even know either.
And then number two, they assume that natural selection will make the good ones survive and take over the whole population.
I mean, that's just the mathematical outcome of increased fitness, right? Like increased fit, if a mutation causes increased fitness, which is measured by reproductive success, then that means that anything with a positive selection coefficient, which is anything beneficial, will have a higher than average chance of. Okay, so we'll back up a little bit. In a basic population mechanics, right? If we just assume that we have a certain population size and random mating within that population, the chances of any allele coming to fixation in that population can be estimated as the number of organisms with the allele divided by the number of organisms in the population in question. That's if the selection coefficient is just at 0, right? If you have a positive selection coefficient, then you can multiply that number times 1 plus that selection coefficient, right? So if your selection coefficient is 0.5, which is an absurdly high selection coefficient, but let's just say it is, right? You take the number of individuals plus the sum of 1 plus 0.5, and then you can divide that, which means that mathematically, if a mutation provides a selective advantage, if it has a positive selection coefficient, it is a mathematical certainty that it has a higher chance than average of coming to fixation in the population. It's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. But like, I'm just going to take another drink for like not understanding basic math and probability, because that's all.
For someone who taught math for so long, you'd think he'd have an idea.
Yeah, he claims to have taught math and science. Dapper, you can't just leave out the vowels. Objods, hold my beer. Says Goop do 3 for $5. But technically speaking, objods are neither alphabets, nor do they usually actually leave out all the vowels. I mean, go read any Arabic text, and somewhere between like a third and half the vowels in any given word are going to be there as actual whole letters. Matres lecciones. It's a thing.
See, in order for evolution to work, one animal has to get a little better than the rest of them.
At reproducing, this is not a judgment call, it is a mathematical measurement, Kent. Let's just remember that.
And the rest of them have to die.
Take a drink for that, too. Am I a little echoey? That might be.
Not to me.
I might be coming back through your microphone. Why would I be echoey? Let me double check to make sure I'm using the right mic. Yeah. Well, first I'm going to take that drink. If I'm being echoey, please let me know. I'm trying to adjust my microphone a little bit, see if it helps. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely just fed back a little bit through your mic. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't changed any volume settings on mine.
Oh, well. I just lost track. I'm going to hit play and see where to jog my memory.
I mean, evolution is...
Oh, right. They all have to die. Right. Okay, so differential reproductive success is not a binary thing where you either reproduce or you don't, right? Now, this is not something that's always understood. I remember that my high school biology teacher did not really get the difference between binary selection, where you either reproduce or don't, and differential reproductive success, right? So differential reproductive success is like you end up reproducing more. And yeah, sorry, Zach, I definitely got that math a little bit off. Pay attention to Zach B. Hancock in the chat for the actual math, because what do I know? Yeah, so if you have two organisms and one reproduces and has 8 kids who go on to reproduce themselves, and the other one has 2, I mean, that is still the first organism is going to be selected for versus the second organism that only had the 2 kids that go on to reproduce. But that doesn't mean that one of them had to die. I mean, they're both going to die because, you know, that's just how life is, right? But it doesn't require some kind of like genocide of the organisms that don't have this allele. In fact, most of the time, even with positive selection, most of those animals will go on to live relatively normal length lives. Borgentori says there's only one guarantee: that Dapper Dinosaur will produce great content. Nice. All right.
Suffering and death and cruelty. Not at all the way God would make things, not the God that I would want to worship anyway.
You mean the God who killed every single baby on Earth? That one? Because remember, Kent is a Noah's Flood literalist. And Kent's like, oh, the god that I would worship would never let animals suffer. I'm just going to take a drink for the absurd amounts of irony in that sentence right there.
Kent, how many animals suffered in the flood?
Or just in the sacrificial system. If you want to take the Bible literally and say that all the mandated sacrifices in the Torah were actually performed, that's a whole lot of animal suffering. I mean, God didn't have to do that. I'm like, oh, what could he have done? There was all the sin from humans. He could just make humans sterile. And then the ones who sin, sure, he punishes those. And then there's just no more humans. And now he doesn't have to have any suffering. Yeah. If the God of the Bible wanted there to be no suffering, he did a really, really, really weird job of it.
People say, couldn't God use evolution? Well, I'm sure he could, but he didn't. And he wouldn't. That's a stupid, retarded God that has to use evolution to get us here.
Yeah, nothing says intelligent like, I'm going to kill all the babies because their parents are making me angry. Okay, cool. Let's take another drink. Goodness.
If you believe God used evolution to get us here...
Also, yes, there is the R slur in there.
Yeah.
But, it's not technically a drink trigger.
You got the wrong God. You ought to trade him in for the real one. The almighty, all-powerful God of the universe.
Vadim Samosky Redchenko says, we can also mention mandated animal sacrifices. God doesn't want the vegan option. I will point out that there are vegan sacrifices, like the offering bread and grain offerings, in which you mix basically grain in with oil to make sort of an oily dough, that are also called for in the Torah. So there are vegan sacrifices in the Torah. Usually of grain and then an oil, which probably would have been like an olive oil if I remember correctly. So, I mean, it's not true that all the sacrifices in the temple that are mandated in the Torah are animal sacrifices. It is most of them. But yeah, grain sacrifices were definitely a thing. If you're reading your King James, it might say corn sacrifice. And that's not to say that there was maize, because the corn that's being mentioned there, corn actually used to just be a general term in English for like starchy grain type things. Like, so wheat is a type of corn, barley, oats, those are all types of corn in 1611 King James type English, which actually was already archaic in 1611. Because one of the things people don't seem to realize is, like, the King James Bible wasn't actually a translation, it was a revision of the earlier Bishop's Bible, which was already like 100 years old when the King James was being revised. So people were already complaining that, like, no one speaks this way back in 1611. So,
To trade that God in. So they're going to say, mutations will make something new. Well, let's talk about this. Mutations certainly happen.
True. We'll take a drink. Good job, Kent.
This picture shows a bunch of roses. The textbook says, mutations are the original source of variation in populations. Mm-hmm. Okay, I agree. The original rose only had...
You can't agree that. If you think that's the case, then you think that all variation within a group is due to mutations that occurred after your creation event, right? Which means that, of necessity, mutations can create new things, right? Because if you look at, say, all of just the coat variation within the genus Canis, which Kent is on record as thinking comes from a single ancestor, right? I'm not going to say that he's, when you push it to Canidae broadly, he backs away from that a little bit. Okay, that's fine, right? That's fine. But what do we have within the genus Canis, right? We have solid coat tawny dogs with a bit of color counter shading like dingoes. We have spots like in Dalmatian. We have like black and tawny around, like tawny bands around the eyes and things that you get like in you get that in things like German Shepherds, Dobermans, Dachshunds, things like that. You get the sort of like a all black color that you get in like black labs. You get the golden color like in golden labs. You get piebald color schemes like in huskies. You get the salt and pepper color that you get usually in like wild type gray wolves. You have the golden jackal coloration that has the background of this sort of golden color, kind of like a golden retriever, but that also then has the dorsal side has the salt and pepper, which is also very similar to the coyote. You've got the red wolf, which has more rufous melanin, but otherwise has the same kind of basic pattern as a salt and pepper, like a gray wolf. Like think about just the colors of canis fur. Now, you're telling me that according to Kent, who agrees that mutations are the original source of variation, all of those had to be mutations since the original group of canids, or members of genus Canis at least, were created. But then Kent is going to say that mutations can't create new things. You can't have both of those at the same time. Either you have to disagree that mutations are the original source of variation. You can say they are a source of new variation. Kent could agree with that. But he cannot agree that they are the original source of variation, and then also say that they do not produce new traits. Those two things cannot possibly both be true at the same time.
Had 5 petals, look kind of like a daisy. And then, the rose we have today is a mutant variety.
Yeah, hey, that's true too. Yeah, wild roses are kind of boring.
Probably many folks wouldn't even recognize a real rose if they saw one.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't.
They've only seen the mutant roses. Somebody capitalized on this, pretty looking rose with all these petals curling up. And today we have all sorts of variations of roses. There's white ones and pink ones and yellow ones and red ones and, multicolored ones. And
actually, with the white ones, you can then color them most other colors by simply changing the dye that you put into the water that you're giving them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Big ones and little ones and, teacup roses and all this. But they're still a flower.
Yes, Kent, monophyly remains a thing. That's how evolution works.
That's not evolution. Yes, variations happen.
Yes, Kent, it is. Jeez. I'm taking a drink for not knowing what evolution... Oh, sorry about that. For not knowing what
She has
evolution
no
is.
idea
No,
what
he doesn't.
evolution is. Which I feel like I've said before on this show.
Oh, you almost certainly have. All right, so, for any creationists in the back, if the allele frequencies in a population have changed over the course of successive generations, evolution has occurred. I don't care if you don't like that fact. I don't care if it doesn't demonstrate universal common ancestry. I don't care if it's not macroevolution and therefore you don't find it significant. Evolution has occurred. Period. Right? This statement makes no more sense than saying that walking to the store doesn't count as walking if you don't go more than 5 miles. That's not how walking works. If I take 3 steps, I have walked. If I take 2 steps, I've walked. If I take 1 step, then maybe you can quibble with me. It's the same thing with evolution. If allele frequencies have changed, which they must have if a new allele is introduced, then you have evolution. Vadim Smovsky Redchenko says, is flower even a biological category? So flowering plants is a biological category, and I'm being generous and assuming that that's what he means is flowering plants. Flower itself is a particular set of organs on flowering plants. They are reproductive organs specifically. So, a rose comes from a rose bush, which is a flowering plant. There are non-flowering plants, like ferns aren't flowering plants. Mosses aren't flowering plants, things like that, right? Pine trees aren't flowering plants. So there are other plants that don't have flowers. So yeah, I'm being a little bit generous, right? In saying that what he means when he says flower in this context is a flowering plant. Sort of like when he says, like, a monkey didn't turn into a human. I'm being somewhat generous in saying, I'm just going to assume that he means what he actually means is a population of monkeys did not evolve into a population of humans over time. Because I don't think that if I were to push him, he thinks that evolution says that a single individual monkey over the course of its own lifespan turned into a human. I don't think he thinks that. He's just being a little bit sloppy in his language. And I don't want to hammer him on just being a sloppy speaker. So, not that I won't sometimes get him on it, because, he is very sloppy, but...
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a judgment call, and I don't have a set of criteria, so,
Happen, and yes, mutations happen. But even people who believe in evolution, like Pierre Grass will tell you, mutations do not produce any kind of evolution.
1977. Let's see what this source even is. Is it a book? All right. Evolution of Living Organisms. Pierre Grass. New theory of transformation discusses traditional interpretations of evolution with a new assumption. The book presents a rational and general account of real evolutionary phenomena based on paleontology and molecular data. It's a book from 1977. Is it actually something that you can get online? I mean, geez, you can buy it for $61 on frickin' Kindle. Not doing that.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Internet Archive. Is this an actual copy? I think it is. I think we might be able to check it. Page 88.
Page 88.
All right. Nope. Can't get past the table of contents unless you borrow. Yeah. Nope. Let's see. Google Books. Let's see if it's on Google Books. Did I drop an F-bomb? I don't remember dropping an F-bomb.
Well, I didn't.
Chapter 2. Oh, this might be it. 65. Oh, this. Yeah, I think this is it. Page 71, page 75. I love actually having a source that we can check. That's one of my favorites. Page 83. Here we go. 85.
Yeah, I want to know how this sentence starts.
Jeez. You have either reached a page that is unavailable for viewing or you've reached your viewing limit for this book. Screw you, Google Books.
Come on.
Oh, right before page 87 and then 88, they're like, no. Pages 89 to 296 are not shown in this preview. Oh, man, come on. Yeah, I'm definitely feeding back through there. Can you check your input for when you're like your input levels on your Discord settings? See if they're a little low. Living organisms, National Library of Australia. Maybe National Library of Australia will help. Nope. I can order a copy or request to borrow it. Right. Thanks, National Library of Australia. Yeah, no, we're not going to be able to check on this. So that's fun. So, because of the well-known penchant for just blatant quote mining in creationism, and the fact that this random book from 1977 isn't something I can get, and that according to every source I can see, Pierre Polakos is in fact not an anti-evolutionist, and in fact believes in evolution, or believed. He's probably passed on at this point. Yeah, I'm gonna call BS on this until I can be shown otherwise. So.
And again, you got to define this word evolution. They don't produce any kind of macro evolution, none whatsoever.
I mean, on its own, a single mutation is unlikely to produce macroevolution, but it's not actually impossible. Here's a great example. So gastropods, which are the group of mollusks that go along on their belly, like snails and slugs, and their sea snail and sea slug compatriots, as well as a few other things that don't obviously look like they should be gastropods, but are, like limpets. They have this thing that they do embryologically called torsion, where basically they just kind of twist in embryo, and they can go either clockwise or counterclockwise. Now, in many species of snail, the direction of torsion is actually determined by a single allele. And because of this torsion, snails actually end up with their reproductive and excretory organs on one side or the other, either left or right-handed. And they can only mate with other snails that have the same handedness. Which means that if you have a population of snails, and they have a mutation to the gene that determines the torsion direction, and it flips the torsional direction, then you can create an entire new species of snail just like that, immediately. Because now you will have some snails that cannot mate with their parents and can only mate with each other after the mutation. Oh, Zach has the whole context, and he's going to be sending me a screenshot over on Shitter. Let's take a look. Let me know when you have that. That would be great. Ian Houston says, Science Direct allows you to have purchased individual chapters. Yeah, I'm probably not going to spend too much money double-checking a Kent Hovind quote. Okay. Let's see. Once one has noticed microvariations on the one hand and specific stability on the other it seems very difficult to conclude the former, microevolution, comes into play in the evolutionary process. Microvariation. Some contemporary biologists, as soon as they observe a mutation, talk about evolution. They're implicitly supporting the following syllogisms. Mutations are the only evolutionary variations. All living beings undergo mutation, therefore all living beings evolve. I'm not sure I would agree with him there, but okay. The logical scheme is, however, unacceptable. First, because its major premise is neither obvious nor general. Second, because its conclusion does not agree with the facts. No matter how numerous they may be, mutations do not produce any kind of evolution. We add that it would be all too easy to object that mutations have no evolutionary effect because they are eliminated by natural selection. Lethal mutations, the worst kind, are effectively eliminated, but others persist as alleles. The human species provides a great many examples, the color of eyes, the shape of the auricle, dermatoglyphics, there we go, that's like fingerprints and toe prints and whatnot. The color and texture of the hair, the pigmentation of the skin. Mutants are present within every population from bacteria to man, there can be no doubt about it, but for the evolutionists, the essential lies elsewhere, the fact that mutations do not coincide with evolution. Yeah, okay, I disagree. I mean, good for that guy from 1977. I'm glad that some guy, what was that, like 50 years ago, had an opinion that's wrong about evolution. Okay.
Here's a picture of a 5-legged bull. He can't run any faster.
That's not a mutation. That's a fail to separate twin right there. Yeah. Let's just take a drink. That's not a mutation. That's not heritable. If that cow reproduces, its offspring will have no particular tendency towards having that fat 5th leg there. So, yeah.
Now, this bull is a mutant.
Zach B. Hancock says there's a lot more context here. He's arguing for environmental variation Lamarckism as the basis for evolution instead of mutation Mendelism. Oh, well, I mean, we've already demonstrated that that's basically wrong. I mean, sure, there's a little bit of, like, pseudo-Lamarckism going on with epigenetics, but because the variation from epigenetics isn't really durable in terms of inheritance, it's really not the major player in evolution, right? Epigenetic changes tend to sort of wear off unless they're actively reinforced by the environment. So, yeah, they're not the driving change in evolution. They're more of a thing that allows organisms to adapt to local conditions over a few generations. But, like, as those conditions change, the epigenetic pattern that is induced on the genome will also change. And the previous patterns will not be carried through because epigenetics are changes to the physical arrangement, basically, of the genome. Not so much like, okay, sure. It's a bit more complicated, but we can just say that for the sake of simplicity. And yeah, they can change pretty easily, and they are not completely heritable. So, yeah.
He did not get any new information. The gene code to the bull already contains the information to make a leg.
Well, I thought it was a cow. Now it's a bull. Kent, did you check that cow's pants? I don't think he did. Because he's going back and forth. He doesn't know what's going on. What if it's a steer? We haven't even considered that possibility.
Maybe.
It just built one in the wrong place, that's all.
Yes, because that is a failed twinning event. That is not even a mutation.
It didn't give him a wing or a feather or a beak.
That's true, I guess. We'll take a drink. That wouldn't be a single mutation anyway, but okay.
It gave him an extra leg, so there's not new information, there is only scrambled information.
No, there isn't even that. Because this is not a genetic problem.
Some people write me letters and say, I've got proof for evolution, and they give an example of polyploidy, which is where a plant, particularly, will double the number of chromosomes.
It doesn't have to be double, but it often is.
And you end up with giant strawberries, or giant fruit of some kind, because it's exactly double the number of chromosomes. That's not any new information.
Yes, it is. It's double the information. In fact, here's a cool thing. Potatoes, tomatoes, and grapes all actually form a group of cultivated organisms that themselves are part of a single clade with a common ancestor that actually had a genome, triplication event in its evolutionary history before their domestication. And as a result, their genomes are actually divided into 3 subgenomes, which are structurally very similar. And in many cases, in the same place in each subgenome, you get genes that produce the same protein. But in other places in the subgenomes, you'll actually get genes that have evolved to produce new proteins with new functions, while really keeping the old versions of the protein in other subgenomes within grapes, tomatoes, and potatoes. Which means that not only was there new information that was created in this replication, because remember, to write down that whole genome, you now need 3 times as many pieces of paper to write it all down. But in addition to that, it allows subsequent mutations that we can just look at in these subgenomes to produce other proteins. Something similar, but less extreme, happened in nodothenioid fish. The nodothenioid icefish has extra copies, or actually partial copies, of a trypsinogen gene, which then later evolved into a glycoantifreeze protein that allows it to colonize colder places than its dearest relatives could possibly survive in. And this was as a result of not a whole genome duplication, but just a partial gene duplication. Part of the gene that makes trypsinogen, which is a protein that turns into trypsin in your gallbladder, which is a protein that breaks down other proteins, was duplicated in nodothenioid fish, this one group, and then evolved into a new gene. So on its own, yeah, gene duplication or even whole genome duplication usually doesn't do a whole lot in terms of creating new genes. It does just duplicate the genes. But one, that's more information. I mean, if you just record that genome, it's bigger now. And 2, it allows for subsequent mutations without harming the previous set of genes.
It's a copy of information that's already existing. That's not evolution.
I mean, it is if it affects the, actual genetic makeup of a species going forward through generations, but okay. In fact, actually, another example of genome duplication is when there was a crayfish, a marbled crayfish, not a marbled crayfish, sorry, what was it? It is the Procambarus phallax. What is that? What's the common name? Cambarus phallax. Oh, yeah, no, it is the marbled crayfish. So what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Oh, they're both just called the marbled crayfish. Okay, well, when Procambarus phallax, the marbled crayfish, at some point in an aquarium, had a partial genome duplication event where it went from diploid to triploid. This created Procambarus virginalis, which is another marbled crayfish, but that does not need to mate to reproduce. It's an entirely new species, and it's now currently invasive in European waterways because people are idiots with their pet crayfish. Hey, don't release foreign wildlife from your fish tank into local wetlands. Everyone. I say this as someone who grew up in a place where people occasionally caught piranhas in the river in Massachusetts. Yeah. You know what doesn't normally live in Massachusetts?
Piranha.
Yeah. How'd you know, Ben?
I'm a good guesser.
Yeah, don't really. Also, that's why there's currently a problem with raccoons in Madrid, Spain. Someplace where raccoons don't normally live. Because people are like, oh, raccoons are so cute. I want to get one as a pet. And then they get an illegal pet raccoon. And then they're like, oh, they're cute, but they're actually terrible pets. What if we just kick it outside? Oh no, suddenly there's feral raccoons running around the streets of Madrid. Goop23 for $2 says AIG is a bag of pea phallax. Oh, it's the wrong etymology, but it works so well, I'll go for it. All right, here we go.
Nothing new's been added, and it's still a strawberry. No, I'm sorry. That.
Rosana Keller says, how are you producing Massachusetts? Massachusetts. I'm pronouncing it. Vadim says, do you say that I didn't do good releasing a Godzilla they gave? Yeah, no, they did a bad job in releasing that Godzilla that you gave them for Christmas. Yeah, silly. Releasing that Godzilla was a bad idea.
It's not evolution. And in nature, probably wouldn't survive. Not generation after generation anyway, it wouldn't make it. Here's a picture of a short-legged sheep. Notice what the textbook says. This mutation would not last in nature.
I mean, probably not, but I could think of it in a situation where it might. For instance, let's say that you have these sheep and they're in a situation where they're on an island where, one, there isn't all that much food, so anything that makes them smaller and therefore require fewer calories is going to be helpful. These short legs might do that. And also, let's say that that place is horribly windswept, right? So the sheep have trouble standing against the wind. Well, lowering your profile against the wind could help with that, and having a lower center of mass would mean you're less likely to fall over. So on a windy, low-calorie availability island, this might actually survive in nature. Now, most places it wouldn't, but it's actually not that hard for even what you would think of as some of the worst mutations to still possibly find a good environment. Now, if it's one of those mutations that just means, like, the animal's just completely non-viable, it's not going to actually go through a full embryological development, well, yeah, okay, that's going to be harmful in basically any environment. But that's not all mutations. So,
Well, of course not, man. He's the first one the wolf is going to catch. Go, boys, go. Here comes the wolf. Oh, Herman didn't make it. See, mutations happen, but they deal with information that's already present, and it diminishes the amount of information.
Oh, so Kent has a way to measure information, apparently, right? Because otherwise you can't say whether information has gone up or down, right? Like, if I said, hey, this table is shorter than that, I can tell because I have this handy thing called a tape measure. Here, I'll see if you guys can hear it. I'm pulling it out, and that little click you heard, that's from my tape measure. It's got inches and centimeters on it. And I guess technically it has millimeters, right? Because it's got little demarcations in tenths of the centimeters. And then I guess it's got, what, tenths of an inch? So it's got decimal inches too. Yeah, that's how I measure length. If I wanted to measure weight, I would use a scale. If I wanted to measure temperature, I'd use a thermometer. What do you think Kent is using to measure information? Because I think it's imagination.
It's nothing.
Well, I mean, it's even not even imagination?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably at best imagination. Because here's the thing, there's no definition for this information thing. Further, I mean, mutations, if you measure information in pretty much any way, like if you say, okay, number of genes, well, we know that that's a number that can increase, right? Because we can watch new genes evolve. Okay, well, that means that we can increase information. If you mean new alleles that are functional, well, we can also see that happen. So that's there. DM, pour out one vegan nog for my homie's wing for $2 says, information is that which mutations decrease. Turtles. I mean, I hate it, but that might actually be the actual operational definition Kent is using. Savage Sparrow's favorite Clovis point Cobra for $2 says, information equals height in inches. Hoven et al. 20 something. I mean, yeah, they do seem to think that, right? Like, poodles have less information than wolves, but more information than dachshunds, which have more information than chihuahuas. And it's like, are you just going on size? Is that it? Goodness. Let's see. Where was I? Oh yeah, so information, right? So if we say that it's just the total number of base pairs in the genome, I mean, any duplication or insertion mutation is going to make that go up. Rosina Keller, $4.99 US says, Kent is still under the impression evolution has an end goal in mind, rather than just surviving, like this rock I have that keeps away tigers. Wait, does your rock work? I mean, you probably don't have any tigers nearby. I would like to buy this rock from you. Let's see. So yeah, basically anytime you actually define information in a way that is non-arbitrary and that would allow you to actually measure information, you quickly find out that, you know what, mutations can actually add information. And that's specifically why I think creationists never define information. Because they know that the minute they do, it will be trivially easy to find a mutation that increases information according to their definition. I'm going to put away this measuring tape before I start making too much noise with it, because it's now tempting to fidget with.
The sheep already had a gene pool code to tell him how to make legs. It just made them
No.
shorter.
Yes, Kent. Evolution is always about tinkering with what has already existed in an organism, right? It's kind of like in Ecclesiastes when the author says there is nothing new under the sun. That's kind of how evolution works, right? Did you know that your jaw is actually a gill arch that's been repurposed for food capture and processing?
And a good thing, too.
Yeah. You don't have a new structure. You have a gill arch in the bottom of your face. It's not new. Did you know that your teeth are actually evolved denticles, which are a dermal covering, which is why teeth, unlike your bones, actually develop from the ectoderm?
Did not know that.
Yeah. You have scales in your mouth, man.
Not.
They're not new. Even your hair evolves from a thickening of the epidermal layers that then invaginate. It's not new. It's just more skin. Really weird, long, thin skin. It's all just variations on what came before. DM, pour one out, one vegan nog. I'm gonna get it right. DM, pour out one vegan nog for my homies. I don't know why I have trouble with that one. Wing. For $2 says, information is measured in turtles, the best tetrapod. Of course, obviously. Alright, here we go.
It didn't give him wings. It didn't give him a beak.
No one mutation is going to change you from having no beak to a beak. No one mutation is going to change you from having no wings to a wing. But if you want to see intermediate steps, you can do that, right? Like we don't have a whole lot of like half-beaked animals right now, but in the fossil record, you can find things that only have a beak towards the tip of their mouths, right? Like we have therizinosaurs that have a beak structure at the tip and teeth in the back. We have half a wing is all over the place, right? Like sugar gliders, walruses, flying frogs, flying fish, colugos, flying squirrels, Draco lizards. All of these are animals that have aerodynamic structures that provide lift and allow them to glide, but that don't quite get them to flight and are essentially a half a wing. Yeah, DM pour one out for the... I'm just going to say DM wing right now. Says demonetized for saying invaginate. Yeah, it's possible. That might be the case. In which case, hey, give me some more super chats to make up for the fact that I probably can't say invaginate here on YouTube.
Yeah.
It didn't give him a bigger brain where he could think like a human.
Okay, but you realize that we have mutations that we know affect brain size in humans, right? Like, that's a thing. And we can watch brain size in hominins increase over geological time. So, like, I love this, because this is just Kent looking at what's basically a conjoined twin in some head of cattle, complaining that the thing that isn't a mutation isn't also certain other mutations, that he's just arbitrarily saying it's not that. I mean, it's also not making the cow pink. It's also not making the cow scaly. It's also not making the cow have flippers. It's also not making the cow have a blowhole. There's an infinite number of things that it's not doing, Kent. You chose the example, Kent. You could have chosen a different example, right? You could have said, look at this human. This human can digest dairy products as an adult. This other human can't. That's because of a mutation that we can actually trace back to two different sections of the population of humanity. And both the mutations actually operate in slightly different ways genetically, although both of them actually affect the promoter region for the, what is it? It's the enzyme that breaks down lactose. Lactase. There it is, lactase gene. I just couldn't remember the suffix for enzymes that do that. Anyway, yeah. They both occur in the promoter regions for lactase that increase the promotion of lactase. So, now what? What are you going to say? Oh, but it didn't give them a wing? Yeah, it gave them lactase persistence. Like, anyway, Roasting a Keller for $9.99 US says, invaginate. Yes, thank you. Jeez. YouTube is going to give me a community guideline strike at this point, too. Actually, they can't. They can only give me a warning. So, take that, YouTube.
It gave him shorter legs, and he already had legs.
Yes, Kent. That's true. But what if you have a different mutation that gives you longer legs, right? Like, say you're some kind of a squirrel, right? Now you have longer legs. And then you have a different mutation that means that the flesh between your fingers doesn't fully undergo apoptosis. Because, in embryo, when you're growing your digits, they're kind of in a mitten of flesh. And then later, the cells between the digits undergo programmed cell death or apoptosis to provide you with separate, individually movable fingers. Like, Ben, can you hold up your hands there? So, see where you have a little tiny bit of webbing right at the proximal end between your fingers?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the apoptosis stopped. What if it stopped higher up? You'd have webbing, right? You combine that with a mutation for some longer legs, and you know what you have the start of? Wings.
Yeah.
What about that, Kent? It's not a mutation, but you know what? We happen to know that a lot of evolutionary changes involve more than one mutation.
That's supposed to be an example of evolution?
No. No one has ever said that a failed twinning event in a cow was an example of evolution. No one has ever said that. Because that's what you're showing us, Kent. You're not even showing us the result of a mutation. Goop23 for $2 says, AIG is a bag of invaginators and seam. Jeez. That is not what that word means, but I'm going to take a drink anyway. Oh my goodness. I think this is the most adult theme the show has ever been.
Well, that's an example of a mutation. Certainly.
No, it's not. Jeez, I'm taking another drink. I've switched over to the lemonade. Kent, you're going to kill me.
Mutations happen, but that's where they stop. They don't do anything. Here's a two-headed turtle. That's a mutant.
No, it's another incomplete twinning, Kent. This is not a mutation. That turtle would not produce double-headed offspring if you mated it. Why is he doing this? Is he just this stupid?
He doesn't know any better.
Yeah, okay.
He is this.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not ninja, just a mutant turtle. If you've seen the TV series about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that.
Excuse me, for all of my friends over in the United Kingdom, that he's referring to the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. So, because, back in the 80s, the word ninja wasn't allowed on British TV for fear of inducing the youth to violence. Oh, 80s UK censorship is such a crazy thing to me.
Yeah.
No, we can't have the kids know about ninjas. What if they start throwing ninja stars at each other? It's like, oh, you mean that weapon that's basically completely non-lethal because how could it be lethal? I think they'll be okay. Savage, Pharaoh's favorite Clovis point, Cobra, for $2 says, I actually have webbed toes like that for 2 and 3. Oh, interesting, yeah. That might actually be a mutation. I don't know that it is because there can also be environmental factors that can cause apoptosis to not get triggered in between certain digits. But yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why webbed digits are a really common both birth defect as well as a thing that you get really fast in animals. Like Labrador retrievers have webbed toes and they swim better for it. And it was easy to breed that into them because it's a common mutation. Happens all the time. And if you select for it, you can spread it through a subpopulation really fast. Yeah, the Teenage Mutant Turtles weren't allowed to use weapons in most of their movies too. Yeah, that's why that's why in like the second movie you have them like hitting people with like sausages and chairs and whatnot. It's because the weapons were too violent. Like they have them, you can see them, but they just don't really use them. Also in the UK, most of the scenes with the nunchucks were censored. And by censored, I usually mean they were just cut. Like, they cut that shot. Not the scene, but, like, that shot. Because apparently, nunchucks, one of the stupidest, most useless weapons ever invented, were literally invented by Bruce Lee to show off, and not as an effective combat tool. No. Far too dangerous to show the youths of Great Britain. And Northern Ireland, I guess. And the Isle of Man? Yeah, man. I was going to say Isle of Manx, but Manx is the language and the people, not the island. That's the Isle of Man.
Well, I appreciate that. But two-headed turtle is a mutant, and it's not helpful.
It's not.
He's going to freeze first winter. Why? Nobody makes a double-neck turtleneck sweater.
Oh, it was a
they
joke
just aren't going to survive. Okay.
Got it.
A mutation is a scrambling of information that's already existing.
No, what if it's just literally a duplication, right? Or what if you have a mutation in a non-sequence constrained region where you just have a repeat that then goes on to repeat again, right? So you have this whole repeat section in the genome where you get like a short repeat, right? Like, see, it's TAG, 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 and that happens a few hundred times. And then, oh no, now it happens again. That's mutation. What was scrambled? Nothing. It's not even sequence constrained, so it doesn't matter. Kent just doesn't know the most basic facts about the genome or mutation. Vishanti, who's been a member for 29 months, is at the tetrapod level, says, excuse, nunchucks equal lethal for John Wick. Godzilla. Well, first we'll take a drink for the Godzilla. Second, look, I am not going to say that John Wick can't make lethal use of nunchucks. I'm just saying that for normal people who are not killing machines, nunchucks are kind of worthless. But to be fair, John Wick could kill people with a pen. So
It's impressive.
that doesn't mean I'm going to take a pen into battle. So, yeah.
I remember as a kid, every Christmas we'd get together with the family and we would play games around the Christmas tree, around the stockings or something. And we would say, who can make up the most words from the word Christmas?
Like anagrams?
And you pick out the letters and rearrange them, and you can get,
Okay, yeah, so anagrams. Got it. DM, pour out one vegan nog for my homies wing. Got it right that time. For $5 says, was Mickey allowed to use the Mariki Gasari in the UK? Of which he was a master? Godzilla? Oh, Mikey. Sorry, Mikey. I don't know. Turtles, though. Turtles. Lots of turtles. And we'll drink for the Godzilla. I'm not an expert on Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Hazmat, Sam, Christ.
Hazmat? You can't make hazmat out of Christmas.
Ram. All sorts of, probably hundreds of words can be obtained from just scrambling the letters that are already existing in the word Christmas.
Okay.
But you're never going to get Xerox or zebra or queen. The letters aren't available. And that's what a mutation does. A mutation will scramble information that's already existing.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Kent, you're purposefully picking a bad analogy. Let's take a drink for this. This is... We're going to take a break after I explain this one because I just realized we went past the break time. I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually usually time my breaks to coincide with when I'm out of a drink. Okay, so... There are 4 quote-unquote letters in DNA, right? All of genetic variation, all of it, in DNA from all organisms can be summed up in different arrangements of 4 letters. A mutation can add any letter. It can delete any existing letter. It can add whole sections of letters. It can delete whole sections of letters. And it can change one letter into any other letter. Now, Bet.
Yeah.
Is there a letter, or is there a word in the English language that you could not get to after a series of changes to the word Christmas that allowed you to A, delete any of the letters, B, add whichever letters you want, and C, change any of the letters that are already in Christmas to any other letters?
Yeah, I could get any word.
Any word. So,
Even
yeah.
Xerox and Queen
Mm-hmm.
and zebra.
Yep. Every single word would be available if this were the case. And that's how that's how actual DNA is. So yeah, Kent is purposefully picking a bad analogy and using processes that are non-analogous, because again, mutations are not actually scrambling up in the sense of just rearranging the genetic material. That's not actually what's happening. Vishanti, for $2, says, it was an effing pencil. Look, if he could kill someone with a pencil, he could also kill someone. Oh, no, she's just using the quote, right? Yeah, good point. I thought she was trying to correct me. I mean, she probably was doing that too, but that is the quote. And yeah, it was very, very impressive.
But it's not going to give you any new information.
Oh, wait, we were supposed to take a quick break. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We'll let Bent get fresh tea or whatever. What are you drinking?
Yeah. Tea.
Tea? Okay, I was
How
right.
do you know?
You're always drinking tea.
I'm always
Yeah.
every all day.
All right, here we go. We're going to go take a quick break. Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everybody. Now that we are just past the break, I want to do my normal post-break bit here, which is to say, first, thank you all so much for all your support, all your generosity. This channel is almost entirely supported by the direct contributions of my viewers, whether it be through Patreon, super chats, super stickers, gifted memberships, things like that. So yeah, oh, and Happy New Year, Landon Knoll, who just came in. So one of the things I want to say is, if you are currently not supporting, or you're interested in supporting more than you are, then we have some options. One of the first ones is Patreon. I would love to get it to the point where I have, on average, a $800 per month on the Patreon. It's currently $755. Getting it to 800 would be a pretty big. Basically, it would allow Patreon to cover some major aspects of my recurring expenses. So there you go. Savage Pharaoh's favorite Clovis Point Cobra also just gifted 5 Dabber Dinosaur memberships. They went to Eric Davis, Landon Knoll, Toblexon, I don't know. Charles Starbuck, and Marcy Marino. Thank you very much. We'll take 5 quick drinks for that. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So anyone who can help with that would be amazing. On the Patreon, you can get a whole bunch of different options. There's starts at only $1. It can go all the way up to $100 a month if you want to be absurdly generous. There's a 15% discount if you go annual, because you can do annually. So, if you want to join the channel for like a year, or the Patreon for like a year, and have it cost you less than $11, options right there. You gain access to the special Discord server, which is one of the easiest ways to get a hold of me. It's the only Discord server that I check daily. I do check a lot of servers regularly, but it's the only one that I'm on almost always. If I'm working, or even if I'm just playing like a computer game, chances are I'm checking that server. There's also, like I said, early access to months and months worth of stuff. There's hours and hours of content. I'm hoping to have a new video out this week for early access. There's also the channel memberships, which is, there's a button right below this video. By the way, the Patreon is linked in the description. There's a button right below this to join the channel, and which, 5 people just joined because of Savage Cobra's generosity. That starts at $1.99, can go up to $20. It has almost the exact same benefits. You can get your name in the credit, just like on Patreon. You can get early access to videos. You get access to the exact same Discord server. So I try to do as little as possible to differentiate between the patrons and the channel members. There are a few minor differences, like if you're a channel member, you get the green name when you're here in chat, as well as a little badge that tells you about how long you've been a member for, whether it be a green tetrapod, or a regular top hat, or a golden top hat, or a Dapper Dino face, or a Ceratosaurus skull. There's a bunch of them. So there are also a very few, but they do exist, a very few members-only videos that only YouTube members get. So there's that. If a monthly or an annual thing isn't something you really are a big fan of, or not something you want to do, there's also a merch store. Linked in the description. You can get t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, blankets, pillows, phone cases, baby onesies, stickers, all sorts of stuff there. And so far, I haven't heard anything bad about the quality of the products. I own one of the products. I've seen a few of the products, and I've been pretty happy with them. It's a Teespring store. Yep, there you go. There's a Dapper Dinosaur mug. Yep.
It's a great mug.
Yep. Oh, Caliban just joined at the level of Tetrapod. Thank you very much, Caliban. That's much appreciated. Everybody, send some Tetrapod emojis, because Caliban just joined a Tetrapod. Now, if none of that's your thing, there's also an Amazon wishlist, one for me and one for Bent, that's linked in the description. You can get us just some stuff. There's all sorts of stuff. There's everything from like some snacks to some books to some high-end items that I think the channel could use, but that I can't super afford at the moment because, life is expensive. There's that. And if none of that's right for you, please make sure you like this video, share this video, watch a few more of my videos if you can. All that helps in the algorithm. But with that being said, we've taken enough time on a commercial. It's time to get going. Here we go.
It doesn't create anything new. It just scrambles what you had. It's not going to help at all for evolution. This textbook shows a picture of a mutant fly. Now look carefully what they said here. Normal fruit flies have 2 wings. This mutant has 4. This rare mutation, like most mutations, is harmful. Beneficial mutations are the raw material for natural selection. Well, now hold on a second. Why would they show us a harmful mutation and then tell us that beneficial mutations are the raw material for natural selection? Why didn't they show us a beneficial mutation?
Because most of them aren't easy to photograph because they're not like visually spectacular, right? So if I said, oh, hey, Bent, this fly has halteres that are 6 microns longer, allowing it for more maneuverability in the air. Can't you tell from the photo? What do you think your reaction would be? Yeah, no, you'd be like, what are you talking about? What am I even looking at? Would you even know where to look if I said that?
No.
Yeah,
of course not.
Exactly. If I said, now you see, this wild Przewalski's horse actually has underfur that is 1.05 times denser than its herd mates, allowing it to survive on fewer calories during the winter. What would that look like in a photograph? I don't know. Probably nothing. If I said, this human has an increased increase activity in the genome region that produces lactase, allowing him to digest ice cream, which means that he has calorie sources unavailable to many other humans. What is that? Like, am I just showing you like some random white guy in a photo? Is that what we're doing? Or like someone from like East Africa, which is another hot spot for lactase persistence? Like, what does it look like? Most mutations don't look like anything. You can't just easily photograph it and say, see, look at this mutation, right? Most mutations actually just affect like little bits of biochemistry. If I'm like, oh, hey, this line has a blood clotting factor that allows its blood to clot ever so slightly faster, and then I just show you a picture of a lion, like, you can't see that mutation. It doesn't do anything. Like when I was talking about those nonothenioid ice fish that have the glycoprotein, or the glycoantifreeze protein, there we go. They just look like fish. You can't see glycogen antifreeze proteins in a picture of a fish. So yeah, the reason they do that, Kent, is because showing a dramatic mutation where you have an extra pair of wings on a fly is dramatic. Fits of Where'd the Carbon Go, Roger Rage, just gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Nasty Hobbits. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink for that, and send some tetrapod emojis. Just don't send pelagic tunicate emojis, because those things are disgusting. Yes, I do know the irony in having made a pelagic tunicate emoji for you to send me, despite the fact that I detest pelagic tunicates. And you're doing the exact opposite of what I asked for.
Oops, I must have misclicked.
Yeah.
Like 15 times.
15, yeah. Silver Harlow has been a member for 22 months. Says, have a happy new year, please. All right. I will follow that order to the best of my ability. No promises. Asta 1 Marzuli equals 10 Hovens Ryu for $4.99 says, case in point regarding can't photograph lactase persistence. I have that condition due to German and Norse ancestry, but I'm black, mixed, and look Latino. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if someone photographed you and they said, look at this wonderful beneficial mutation this human has. I'd be like, what? What are you talking about? I don't get it. Yeah.
You know why they didn't show a beneficial mutation? Because nobody's ever seen one.
Just take a drink. We've already mentioned so many in this stream. It said, okay, look, at least Landon Knoll sent the correct tunicate. Thank you, Landon. Good, hardworking, God-fearing, patriotic Dutch tunicates.
There are no beneficial mutations. They don't exist.
Okay.
One guy said, we've got beneficial mutations because sickle cell anemia is a beneficial mutation.
I mean, it is in certain conditions, right? So one of the things to remember is that the benefit or costliness of a mutation is always environment dependent. So if something is good in one environment, that actually usually means it's less good in other environments. So for instance, lactase persistence is usually depicted as a good mutation. And in most environments that humans find themselves in, it is. But then the question arises, well, okay, why are so few mammals able to digest lactose late in life? And the answer is because it helps with weaning, right? Female mammals can't be nursing their offspring for their entire lives. I mean, think about it. What would the world be like if the average 40-year-old was still breastfeeding from his mom? Like, that's not a reasonable option. At some point, you got to cut that off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for the sake of, being able to get through with life, especially since you're probably going to have a fair few kids, especially in the past, right? So why is lactase persistence seen as a good thing? Well, because humans can domesticate animals and then drink their milk, right? And they can actually artificially select those animals for higher milk production, right? Like those cows that have to come in and be milked every day, they make more milk than a calf can drink. If you have a milk cow who is recently calved, you still have to milk it because it will make too much milk. And if you don't milk those cows daily, they will start to feel pain. Cows aren't forced to be milked. They go to the milking station every day because they want to be milked, because they don't want to have an udder full of heavy milk weighing them down all day. It kind of sucks. Right? And so in an area where there's a high calorie dense food available, where food scarcity is a constant threat for humans, lactase persistence is a beneficial mutation. In a situation with very limited milk availability that's basically only from female humans, or I guess the occasional lactating male human, which does happen, but it's rare enough that we're going to discount it. And that comes at a high cost to the group as a whole, because milk production in a human is a calorie-intensive thing that is also limits to some degree things like your mobility, your ability to move quickly without significant amounts of pain and everything, because, you know, when you're weighing down your chest with dangling bits of flesh that are now swollen with milk, it's hard to move fast. Because, you know, they'll swing heavily and can be painful. All of these things mean it's a good idea to stop lactating at a certain point and wean kids off. And it's helped by lactase in-persistence or non-persistence, which means that's beneficial in certain environments. Anyway, enough talking about lactation. Asta1 Marzuli equals 10 Hovins Ryu for 4.99 says, to be fair skin is actually a beneficial mutation for the humans at high latitude. So you can photograph some beneficial mutations. Godzilla. That's true. We'll take a drink. Yeah, at high latitude, light skin allows you to absorb more UV rays, which allow you to create more vitamin D, which would otherwise be lacking because of the weaker strength of the UV coming in from the sun. But at low latitudes, it can be detrimental because the extra UV that you absorb means that you are more likely to be sunburned as well as to get skin cancer. In which case, dark skin is beneficial at those latitudes, which is one of the reasons why skin color correlates pretty strongly to the latitude of your ancestors in humans. Weird, isn't it? Sean, who's been a member for 7 months and is at the amulet level, says, one dairy farm put in automated milkers and the cows went 5 to 6 times a day to get milk. Godzilla. Wow, that's... I mean, I don't blame those cows. If I had an udder that was constantly filling with way more milk than is reasonable, I would want that stuff out of there as much as possible. DM pour one out. Goodness, I got it wrong again. DM pour out one vegan dog for my homie's wing for $2. Says traits developed by artificial selection don't count. I don't know. I on the one hand, it's true that they're not completely great analogs for natural selection. But on the other hand, they are evolution, and those traits are beneficial in the environment of being taken care of by humans, right? So it's iffy. I don't know. Dark Law Dragon, who's been a member for 18 months and is at the tetrapod level, says Godzilla stomps on AIG with an AIG as a bag of dicks emoji. We'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. All right, here we go.
If you get sickle cell anemia in Africa, then you can't get malaria. Oh.
No, that's not true. First, it's if you have sickle cell trait, you have resistance to malaria, which means you are likely to survive malaria infections. If you have sickle cell disease, which is what gives you sickle cell anemia, you're probably just going to die. So...
Well, that's probably true. Okay.
It's not, actually, Kent.
But you can die from malaria or you can die from sickle cell anemia.
Yeah, that's why it's sickle cell trait that is the beneficial genotype. That's where you're heterozygous. So on one chromosome, you have the allele that results in sickle cell anemia if it's on both chromosomes. And on the other chromosome, you don't. So what happens is you have a high prevalence of sickle cell trait. When two humans with sickle cell trait mate, that means they each have a copy of a chromosome with and without the allele for sickle cell. That means that half of their children, on average, will have sickle cell trait. Half of them, on average, will have no sickle cell allele. And half of them, that's a quarter of them. A quarter of them, on average, will have no sickle cell trait. A quarter of them will have sickle cell anemia. Now, the half with no sickle cell at all are more vulnerable to malaria, and so they will have a higher mortality rate. The 1/4 with sickle cell anemia will have sickle cell anemia and therefore a higher mortality rate. But that means that the most fit group of your offspring will be the 1/2 of them that have sickle cell trait, which means that they're the ones who are more likely to go on and then further reproduce. Which means that compared to the other 2 genotypes, it is a selective advantage, which means that it is in fact a beneficial mutation in a high malaria environment, which is where we find people, populations that have a high rate of sickle cell trait incidence. It's almost like it's not a coincidence, and it's actually the kind of thing you would predict from evolution. And yes, sickle cell trait is not a great thing to have in non-high malaria environments. I wouldn't want to have it in, say, like, I don't know, Northern Europe, where there's basically no malaria. I would have said the United States, except, yeah, Florida has malaria now, guys. So that's fun.
Yay.
Hooray! Malaria's back in the United States. Woo!
So to say that sickle cell anemia is a beneficial mutation because you can't
sickle cell trait.
Get malaria is like saying if you cut off your legs, you can't get athlete's foot.
Yeah, if athlete's foot were a constant danger and were likely lethal, then yeah, not having feet might actually be an advantage if you didn't otherwise need feet to survive. Like if you were like an orangutan who tended to brachiate everywhere, and your feet were just kind of handy sometimes, and suddenly poachers were going around killing orangutans for their feet, which would be a weird thing, but hey, whatever, then yeah, some mutation that meant that you ended up without a foot or some stubby club foot would be an advantage. Because whether or not a mutation is advantageous is always dependent on the environment. There is no such thing as an objectively beneficial mutation. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't exist. Mutations do not have objective, unchanging fitness values. The fitness is entirely dependent on the environment.
Well, that's true, but you need your legs, okay?
Nope, you don't always need your legs. Lots of animals don't have legs. You might need yours, Kent. What about snakes? Snakes are doing great without legs. Snakes live on every continent except Antarctica, and they live on most islands. And they have colonized almost the entire ocean. They don't live in the Atlantic, which is weird, but whatever. DM, pour out 1 vegan nog for my homies winning for $2 says, malaria equals athlete's foot in Kent Hovind's land. Yeah, that's another thing, yeah. Kent Hovind comparing malaria and athlete's foot is pretty extreme. Take a drink. Kent might be so like parochial in his thinking that he might think that the fact that for him getting malaria would be an inconvenience means that that's what malaria is. When in fact it is, for most people that get malaria, a life-threatening disease that has a high mortality rate unless you have something going for you, like sickle cell trait or access to medicine, which is hard to get in a lot of the places that still have malaria. Because one of the reasons they still have malaria tends to be that they're relatively poor. Because rich places like to just kill off the malarial mosquitoes ASAP.
It's not a beneficial mutation. And if that's the best example you've got for a mutation causing being something beneficial.
It's not. I already gave a whole bunch, but Kent's not listening, so. Horseflesh, who's been a member for 13 months, and is at the Tetrapod level, says, AIG are a pot of prickly pickles with a Ghidorah emoji, so we will take a drink for that. Thank you very much, Horseflesh. Okay.
You're in sad shape if you're trying to prove we all came from a rock.
Kent, there's a difference between demonstrating beneficial mutations and universal common ancestry. The evidence for universal common ancestry comes from things like being able to create high confidence interval phylogenies from things like neutral variation among widely dispersed taxa, as well as shared genes with deep homology across the entire tree of life. There's more than one aspect to the theory of evolution. And the fact that one thing isn't evidence for the entirety of the theory of evolution doesn't mean that that one thing doesn't exist and isn't evidence for the part of evolution to which it is significant. This is just a basic problem with logic at this point for Kent. Jeez.
That the best example you can give is the sickle cell.
It's not.
Example. You got a problem, okay? You got a silly philosophy. You ought to change what you believe, okay?
Remember that time Ken said, what I believe is dumb?
Yes, I do.
Oh, it's too bad
And I
he's not
drank
saying it
because
now.
he was.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said, and I drank because he was right.
That's true. That's true. He was.
This textbook says evolution and natural selection go together. Whole chapter on it.
I mean, yeah, natural selection is an aspect of evolution. It's not all of evolution. It's kind of like saying fermentation and beer making go together. Well, I mean, yeah, but do you have to do things besides fermentation to make beer? Well, yeah, you have to grow grains, you have to grow hops, you have to harvest grains, you have to harvest hops, you have to cook some mash, you have to, you have to hop that mash, you have to strain it. There's all sorts of steps that go in that aren't fermentation. But can you realistically talk about beer making without talking about fermentation? Even non-alcoholic beer is fermented; it just has the alcohol removed. Like, how could you possibly talk about beer making without talking about fermentation? I don't know. I don't think it's possible. It's the same thing with natural selection and evolution. Yeah, it takes more than natural selection to get to the modern theory of evolution. So, natural selection is still a big player in there.
It says natural selection causes evolution.
I don't like that phrasing if that's what it actually says. I don't see that anywhere.
Well, now hold it. Natural selection certainly happens. We have no argument with that. The creationists thought of it first.
Did they?
Sure, they did.
Which creationist thought of it first? I want to know.
Natural selection is what is called a conservative process. It doesn't create anything new. It conserves the species or kind as it is.
Okay. One, it is in fact not something that is making new things. So we'll take a drink for that being correct. But it does not preserve species as they are unless they are already at some fitness peak on the fitness landscape. So this is a little bit tricky to envision. So I'm gonna switch up what we're doing here real quick. This is gonna be a little weird, so bear with me. Bent, your face is going away for a little bit. You might actually want to look at the stream.
Okay.
All right. So what I have here is we got Blender going up here. So I'm going to delete this guy, and we're going to add in a plane. I'm just going to subdivide it a whole bunch, right? We're just going to go, whoop. No, 10 is not enough. We're going to go 60. Okay. And then I'm going to add in a, let's see, cloud thingy. And we're going to add in a displace. Where'd you go? Modify, deform. There we go. Displace. And we're going to use this texture here. All right. So this is a landscape, right? So on the X and Y, which are the red and yellow, we have morphological space. So every location represents a different morphology that an organism can have, right? So like if you're here, right around here, you have a different morphology than if you're over here. Okay. And the height represents your relative fitness within this landscape. Okay? We're going to make it a little bit easier to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. And we're going to just do 3. I'll pop into here. And then
Magic of Blender.
yeah, Blender's cool. What can I say? All right. And then right. So up on these peaks right here where we have these bits of yellow, right? That's where you really, really want to be. And down here in these valleys, we'll add another one. We'll just add, make this guy black. Down here in these black areas of despair, which, why is this being weird? True normal? Yeah, whatever. Oh, no, that's why. Yeah, because I have just facing. That's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll just multiply that in. Multiply. Gets this guy going in here. And yeah, select, well, and some power. What are you doing to me? You know, whatever. We'll give up on the whole height map thing. Sorry. If I had more time, I would think about it. Anyway, yeah. So you want to be on these peaks, right? We'll turn on the cavity. That'll help. So these peaks are where you want to be in a fitness landscape. Which means if you're at a peak, right? Like, so let's say you're right here, right around this peak. Any place that you go off from that, any mutation will take you away from that if it affects your phenotype at all. Right? So if I'm here, any mutation that takes me down the slope, it's probably going to be a bad thing. All right. Which means that natural selection will tend to favor any mutation that moves me at all, right? So basically any mutation is going to be selected against. That's what Kent's is talking about. That's called purifying selection. But let's say you're not on a peak, right? Let's say you're down here somewhere, right? So there's a slope coming up this way. Going this way is mostly neutral, and going down is bad. So selection is going to act against mutations that bring you this way. Mutations that go this way, it's mostly going to be blind to, but any selection that pushes you this way is going to be favored. And yes, this is Blender, Daniel Gable. Right? So that means the mutation is going to take the average morphology of the species, which might be somewhere around here. It's going to push it up and up and up until it's around here. Right? That's directional selection. And yeah, I know the thing isn't writing on the surface, whatever. I could fix that eventually. Right? So this is called a fitness landscape. Might be easier if I bring down the size a little bit. Oops, that's too much. There we go. Right. So yeah, on a peak, then yes, Kent is right. Natural selection is purifying and conservative. If you're anywhere other than a peak, if you're on a slope or you're on a trough, then mutation can be directional. In fact, if you're on a slope, then you can actually have selection acting in multiple ways, right? So these are all beneficial directions to go if you're in this little trough here, which actually might mean that your population starts fracturing. So some of your population starts moving up this way and gets to this peak. Some of your population might start moving up this way and get to this peak. Some of your population might start moving up this way, and then eventually they might even be able to get up to this peak. And if these peaks are different enough that they're not competing for different resources, you might actually get speciation going here. So this might become one species over here on the left, a different species over here on the right, and a different species over here on the right. Well, yeah, this is the middle. This is the left. Yeah, sorry, whatever. The further right, shall we say. But if they are competing for the same resources, if that's how close they are in the morphological space, then what's actually more likely to happen is you'll start getting subpopulations, but then this group here that is on the highest peak will outcompete these groups. And so these will just kind of disappear. Or it might be that you just kind of start off right here as you enter a new environment, and then despite the fact that this peak is available, you might actually end up just kind of getting stuck here, and then you might have trouble crossing this valley unless you have a mutation that can immediately take you onto this slope. Right? These are all things that are an aspect of this concept called fitness landscapes. Fitness landscapes are actually, they're a relatively basic part of evolutionary biology, but they're clearly something that Kent has absolutely no idea about. Because just the very fact that we can talk about these fitness landscapes and how we're modeling how evolution works is right there. That explains how natural selection does not have to be a conservative force. Now, in real life, fitness landscapes are going to be way more than two-dimensional, right? You cannot track an entire morphospace for an organism in 2 dimensions, right? You need like 87 dimensions. But you know what? Blender struggles once you go past 4 dimensions. So I'm only showing you 3. Anyway, we're going to switch back over to Kent. So give me just a second. We are back. Thanks, Blender.
Yay.
All right. So we're going to try and get through some Kent. I have an idea. We're getting close to the end, but we only have 4 minutes. If we don't quite get to the end, let's just actually push it a little bit extra and get to the end of this video.
Mm-hmm.
Natural
Okay.
selection weeds out the inferiors and keeps defective organisms from taking over the population.
But defective doesn't mean anything unless you know what the environment is, right? Because remember when we were on the land on that whole fitness landscape, right? There were multiple slopes that all faced the same directions at different places, which means that a mutation could push you in a particular direction in morphospace in the same direction on different slopes, or in the same direction on different slopes, which now means one's going up and one's going down, right? So if you say I have a mutation that pushes you to the right in morphospace, depending on where you are, that could be down a slope or up a slope. And that's because mutations are always environmentally dependent. Kent, no relation. Let me get this right. Halstead for $9.99 says, if this man ever picks up a textbook on modern history, he's going to have a heart attack from the volume of man's fallible words. No scientist has seen the 100-Year War. Ipso facto, it never happened. Yeah, that's true. There was no 100-Year War. Also, the 100-Year War didn't last 100 years. It lasted like 112, which is weird.
Natural selection works. I got no argument with that.
Okay,
it has
cool.
nothing to do with evolution, though.
Kent, even the thing you're talking about is evolution.
It's not going to cause any new kind of animal.
I mean, we just saw easily how it can, right? If you find yourself at a trough in a morpho in the landscape, then it absolutely will. In fact, you know what? What if we actually showed how that might work in more Blender? Ben, you want more Blender? You think we should do more Blender?
Sure.
Should we
Yeah,
do
why
my
not?
favorite thing in Blender?
Geometry nodes?
Yeah, geometry nodes. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Let's do some geometry nodes, guys. All right. So I'm going to go to geometry nodes. We're going to switch back to the screen with Blender. All right, so we have this landscape. I flattened it out. Doesn't matter. I guess I'll erase. Where's my option for erase? You know what? Doesn't matter. We're just going to ignore these grease pencil marks. All right, so I'm going to set add a set position. We're going to add a noise texture, a combine. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to offset on this up and down just like before, right? Oh, cool. We'll decrease this right here. Well, more. Here we go. There's a fitness landscape for you. Okay, cool. Switching it to 40. What if this starts to happen? You see how the landscape is changing because the environment is changing? That can mean that over time, your selection is going to move you from one peak to another. So for instance, let's say this is the landscape, right? And you're here on this kind of broad peak. So you've got a lot of morphological diversity, but you can't go too far down the peak because then you start really losing fitness. But oh no, the landscape changes, and now you're not really in a very good area. And then it changes even more, and oh, suddenly you're actually on a bit of a trough, and there's a new peak heading off this way. So you start climbing up this area, but when you get here, oh no, the landscape changes. Oh, hey, you're doing pretty well here, but oh, suddenly, now it's more advantageous to start going up this way. So you travel like this as time goes because of the changing of the fitness landscape. Wow, cool. It's almost like all of this is already well explained by evolutionary theory. Like we actually have mathematical models that explain how all of this work in predictable ways. Who would have ever thought that we might have already figured this out and that we might actually have real like science and math and experiments that explains all of this? What a crazy concept, right? Goodness.
This textbook says natural selection can only act on biologic properties that already exist.
True. That's why you need natural selection and mutation in order to make these journeys across the landscape. Because remember, if a mutation happens in an area that actually changes the phenotype, then that means you're moving to a new location on that fitness landscape. And if that new location happens to be higher than your previous location, natural selection will favor that mutation. The only way for what Kent is saying to work is if mutations can only ever move you to new locations at the same elevation or lower elevation. But what stops a mutation from moving up the fitness landscape? What could possibly do that? And I don't know. There's no proposed mechanism. Also, for some reason, the $9.99 super chat from Kent No Relation Halstead has like just duplicated itself across the top of the chat. I think that's a bug because I'm pretty sure I'm not seeing 3 such donations. So I don't know what's up with that.
It cannot create properties in order to meet adaptational needs.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
There have been many times when I needed a third arm when I was building a house. It'd be nice to hold the board and hold the hammer and know how do I get the nail out. Okay? But just because I feel the need for one is not going to create one. It'd be nice to have wings.
Yeah.
Many times I wish I had wings. I could fly someplace, get there faster, get out of a traffic jam. But the fact that I feel this need for them is not going to create them. And it'd be nice to have an eye in the back of your head to see the kids when they're playing when you're busy working. Okay, that'd be nice. A lot of moms would wish they had an eye in the back of the head. But needing one and feeling the need for it very strongly is not going to create it. It has to be in the genetic information. See, natural selection is sort of like a quality control. If you worked in a factory that produced cars, I worked at General Motors, okay? And when I worked there at General Motors, we built trucks. GM Truck and Coach Plant, Pontiac, Michigan. Plant number 6. If I'm working on the assembly line, building these trucks, and when they get to the end of the assembly line, somebody checks them. Mm-hmm. You know, kick the tire, slam the door, make sure it starts, drive it around, and look for defects. That's normal. Almost any factory that produces any complex item.
No, okay, Bent.
Yeah.
You took biology in school, right?
Yes.
So you probably have like a basic understanding of how embryological development works, right?
Pretty basic.
How closely would you say that it resembles car manufacture?
It's not at all similar.
Okay. So basically we're talking about very different things right now.
Very much.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because you know what? Maybe I'm just wrong about embryological development. I mean, I don't know. I only took biology for non-science majors. I mean, I aced it, but still.
Well,
Has a quality control. Before it goes out the door, you check it.
Oh, DM41. So DM Wing says, "Oh, I didn't. Oh my goodness, I missed some. Oh, I missed a.
what did you miss?
I think I missed a couple things. No, I read the horseflesh one. Okay, DM pour out one vegan nog for my homies win for $2 says Kent Hovind. A kind is a species. Oh, sorry, not a kind is a species. Yeah. Sorry about that, DM Wing. Yeah, sorry. I don't know how I missed that. I must have been while I was looking away drawing on my screen with Blender. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for yelling at me to make sure I read your super chat. I don't want to miss any of those. You pays it, I says it. Says it?
That's
Says
common sense. Suppose these trucks are going through, or suppose you work in a Fisher Body, or you work in General Motors or someplace and you're building cars. And your job is to check every car that comes by and look for defects. Mm-hmm. If you find a defect and it's very serious, you reject it.
Okay, but remember how I had those geometry nodes up, Bent? And I could, with just one number, smoothly change the shape that I was working with?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I had a setup like that for cars, which is more similar to how your genome works in shaping your body, right? It has things like, okay, turn this hormone on for this long. You can have a mutation that means it's now on for longer, which means now, say, the limb growth that it's controlling. Now your limbs are longer, or less long, now they're shorter, or something like that, right? Or like with spine growth. Now your spine's going to divide into more vertebrae, or fewer, whatever. Let's say that's how cars worked. There was actually just a big string of numbers that all interacted in order to create the plan for a car. And changing a single number could have a dramatic effect on the overall shape of any given part, and the entire car would adapt around that to fit everything. And every once in a while, someone went by and kicked the machine that stored this program, and it tweaked a few of the numbers. I think that it would be very possible to then get a car that would be better, and that on inspection, you would approve of and say, this is actually a better design. We should make this the new standard. And the reason I say that that's the case is because I actually happen to know the genetic algorithms, things that design cars in exactly that way. Well, not with physical kicks, but, simulated mutations that use random numbers to generate variations on previous designs are actually something that you can use to design vehicles. So far from what Kent is telling us, an actual analogous progress can in fact be used to create vehicles. Alia Jane, who's been a member for 11 months, says, guess who got her autism diagnosis? Well, all right. Look, I'm a big fan of figuring out what diagnoses you should have, because that means that you now can develop a good plan to figure out how to deal with that, right? Not that autism is a bad thing to have, but it does mean that you're going to have to, figure out how to effectively engage with neurotypical type people. And that is easier to do when you actually have a formal diagnosis. So congratulations on getting that diagnosis. I hope that now this can lead to you having a good setup to, figure out how to interact with all those weird neurotypical people. So, yeah. You Little Rascal, who's been a member for 20 months and is at the amniote level, says, natural selection can't create new info. That's what mutations do, but most of them aren't beneficial. That's where natural selection comes in. But natural selection can't create... Yeah, it's that circular argument that they like to do. Just keep going in that circle. All right, here we go.
That's what natural selection does. The slowest rabbit's probably going to get caught by the fox or the wolf. So that keeps the species of rabbits fast.
Yeah, but Kent, what if a rabbit gets a mutation that increases its leg length, allowing for a longer hop length, which overall means a faster overland speed? What would prevent that? Let's just stipulate, for the sake of argument, that would be beneficial. What could possibly prevent a mutation that would just mean that a rabbit gets slightly longer legs? I can't think of anything. Because we know that leg length is a thing that's genetically determinable. And we know that a mutation can change the genes that affect leg length. And we know that it can happen in either direction. So, logically, it doesn't seem possible that what Kent's saying is true.
Right.
If all the slow ones survive, well, then pretty soon the whole population would slow down. Yeah, that would happen. Sure, natural selection works. But it's still a rabbit. It doesn't change a thing.
Yes, Kent, monophyly continues in operation. Congratulations, you figured out how evolution works. And now you think it's how evolution doesn't work because you're an idiot.
If you're working in this factory and your job is to check the cars coming out the line, and you take out every reject, how long would it take that process to change the car to an airplane? Oh, it never will.
But Kent, what if actual airtime over ramps was a selection pressure, and we were designing cars the way that I talked about, where we have like a set of mathematical variables that the entire car will adapt to when they change? I actually think that if you evaluated cars based on hang time, you could probably get a glider pretty fast, and maybe you wouldn't actually get powered flight, but you could probably actually get a car that would glide a long distance out of that. Probably pretty fast, actually. Savage Pharaoh's favorite Clovis Point Cobra for $5 says, Kent is very lucky H. sapiens isn't under significant selection pressure for intelligence. Matt Powell was even luckier. Yes, that is true.
See, natural selection doesn't change the animal or plant to something else. And quality control doesn't change the car to an airplane. Design engineering changes the car to an airplane. Natural selection is God's quality control, that's all it is. And survival of the fittest certainly happens. Generally. It's not a really good word, okay, a good phrase.
I actually agree with Kent there. We'll take a drink. I don't much like the phrase survival of the fittest, because one, it's not about survival, it's about reproduction. And two, who the fittest is changes a lot. So that phrase doesn't really take that into account. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Yeah. Good job, Kent.
Survival of the fittest certainly, though, does not explain arrival of the fittest.
Yeah, that's mutation.
The fact that the fastest rabbits generally survive doesn't tell you how the rabbits came to be. It doesn't help you at all explaining how the rabbits came to be. And survival of the fittest is what is often called a tautology. That is
So yeah, there's some truth to this, right? Like, what's the fittest? It's the ones that survive the best, which is not actually how we measure it, but it's often what that phrase seems to imply. How do you know they're the fittest? Well, because they survived. Hivesci for $5 says the slowest rabbit gets arrested for structuring. Oh goodness, I'm gonna die.
You okay?
No. That one got me. Good job, Hivesci. Oh, thank you, Bree. Mentali 1998 for $5 says, "Gotta love it when creationists use machines to compare living things that have kids." Yeah, no, it's really annoying. Vishanti for $2 says, "Yex use biological analogies challenge impossible." Yeah, no, they are never going to use analogies that actually work. Tremo for $2.72 as their third super chat on a live stream says, "Reproduction of the nichist." All right.
Sentence that means nothing. I'll show you how it works. Ask a professor. Say, "Excuse me, sir, could you please..."
Yeah, Bree's now wanted for manslaughter after having killed me.
"Tell me why this one survived." They say, "Well, because it's the fittest." Oh. Question. How do you know it's the fittest? Well, because it survived. Oh, I see. That's why it's called a tautology. It's a useless phrase.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the phrase. I'm not going to disagree with Kent on this one. Every once in a while, Kent and I are on the same page. It's very rare, but it does happen.
Yes, I'll go along with probably generally the strongest survive, okay? But that has nothing to do with evolution whatsoever. If a whale goes through a school of fish and eats 80% of them, it's not survival of the fittest. It's called survival of the luckiest.
Hey, Kent, you've stumbled upon genetic drift, which is also a mechanism of evolution. Congratulations. I'm going to take a drink for Kent just not realizing that, oh yes, this is also a thing that is accounted for in modern biological evolutionary science. Oh my goodness. Congrats, Kent.
Does that whale have a uvula?
I don't do. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if whales do have a uvula. For all I know, they do.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? Everyone, someone in the audience, check for me. Do whales have a uvula? Because I mean, what do I know? I don't know that much about whale soft tissue anatomy.
And that's what really happens. Survival of the fittest, it's a useless phrase, okay? Probably because of natural pressures, the strongest in certain areas will survive, or the fastest, or the smartest, or whatever.
Or sometimes it's the dumbest. Brains are expensive. What if you have been using your brain to escape predation, but you suddenly find yourself in a place with more or less no predators and plenty of food, like some oceanic island? Well, maybe you don't need a big brain. Maybe it's okay to get dumber. And maybe that will result in higher reproductive success because you don't need such a big brain. It's possible, right? We have a lot of flightless birds on islands because they don't have a lot of natural predators. Why? Well, huge honkin' flight muscles are expensive to maintain. They're metabolically costly, which means you need more calories. Well, if you just don't have as many calories that you need, you can survive better. You can reproduce more. So there's a selection pressure against having big, strong flight muscles. So you get weaker in that area. Now, you know, when you're a Hawaiian bird and suddenly mongooses are introduced to help take care of the snakes that were introduced, well, okay, maybe that's now a bad idea, but, you know, that's one of those environmental shifts. Remember when we were talking about the fitness landscapes and we started shifting the environment? Yeah, sometimes that happens, and if you can't adapt fast enough, well, too bad. But, yeah. Zerolon says blue whales do not have uvulas, checking on others. Is it uvulae? I don't actually know the proper plural for uvula.
But it doesn't change it to something else. It's still the same kind.
Once again, Kent, yes, monophyly is a thing.
And you have to keep that thought in mind. Okay, next week we'll take up where we left off, talking about...
Zero1 says, according to 20 seconds of research, more than Ken has ever done, some whales do have a uvula, some do not, but it's not pronounced. Okay.
More about Charlie Darwin's book and some of the examples they give today in the textbooks for evolution, and all of which have been proven wrong. And this is the kind of information that will help students that have to go to public school. We'll cover that next week.
All right. Well, that was almost exactly on time. Thanks, Kent. That was,
Hmm.
I mean, it's a coincidence, but like whatever. Awesome. So, Bent, how did you like episode 8 of CSE 102? Oh, I can't hear you at all. Did you mute? You're not coming through at all. I can only barely hear you because you're physically close. Try calling again. That was weird. Nope. Did I mute you? Did I do something? Nope.
Testing, testing.
You're back. What changed?
Nothing.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe it was a Discord problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What was the question?
How'd you like episode 8 of CSE
Oh.
102?
So, yeah, Kent doesn't know anything about evolution.
No.
He believes in more evolution than he realizes.
Mm-hmm.
And he also doesn't know anything about DNA or mutations or science or math. I think that's it.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a pretty good episode. Pretty good. But
Yeah.
what do you expect from Kent?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't expect much. And yet I'm still always disappointed. Right? It's like I
Yeah.
expected nothing, and yet I'm still disappointed.
Exactly.
So, okay. Let's take a look at what is coming up. First of all, if you are interested, we are watching the not the last 4, but the previous set of, so the penultimate 4 group of 4 episodes of Power Rangers Time Force over on the Discord after this. So if you enjoy watching Power Rangers with us, head over there. This is only for people who are patrons or channel members. So there you go. Let's take a look at what is coming up on the channel. Bent, do you have anything to announce? Anything you're doing that people might want to know about over the next week or so?
I'm doing Kent with Bent next week.
Okay.
I don't remember anything else that I'm doing.
Okay. Let's take a look. So on the 4th of January, we have What Even Is a Feather? Batty Bodie's Dinosaur Delusions number 4. That is the final episode of that. That will be coming out at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern as a premiere. On Saturday, we have, let's see. So we're following up with more L.A. Marzulli. I don't have a title for that yet, but right now the plan is Vishanti will be here again, and we will do more L.A. Marzulli. And then next Tuesday will be Kent with Bent. What is it? 128? Is that
128.
is that actually right? Yeah, 128. You were right. I was untrusting. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, so that's basically a week from now. I will also say that on Wednesday the 10th, currently the plan is that I will be having a chat with Flat Earther Michael, along with Jackson Wheat. So that should be a thing that happens. I don't know what else to say. I'm also not sure if I should get rid of the Merry Christmas theme for Kent with Bent, because remember, old calendar Christmas is coming up. So maybe I'll put out a poll to see if people think that I should do Merry Christmas for old calendar Christmas, because while it is far fewer people who celebrate Christmas on the date of the old calendar Christmas, which is December 25th, as opposed to new calendar December 25th, which are separated by more than 2 weeks. So yeah, like, I don't know. Or maybe it's exactly 2 weeks. I've got to double check. Doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. I will at least try to remember to put up a community post, though, because I like to put up community posts for holidays when I remember, for all sorts of various holidays, right? Like I had a Diwali post this year. I've had most of the major Jewish holidays and some of the minor Jewish holiday posts, most of the Christian holidays. So yeah, I mean, I try. I'm not going to get everyone's holiday. So if you have a holiday that you celebrate and you would like to see me send a message for that, and I have not done so in the past, maybe I just don't know about that holiday, and I would like to learn about the holidays that you celebrate. So if you celebrate a holiday that I don't know about, and you would like to see me put out a post to wish people well on that holiday, please let me know. at the very least, I will learn about a new holiday, which is always interesting. And hey, if I think that it's, like if I have time, which I probably will, it's a very good chance I'll put out a post. So, yeah. But with that though, thank you so much for watching. Please remember, if you can and you can afford it, check out the Patreon. Check out the joining the channel. Once again, I would love to get that Patreon to 800 a month. That would be a nice round number. That would mean that my Patreon is really taking care of a big aspect of my recurring costs. It would basically take a significant chunk of them, and just that's taken care of every month. I just don't have to worry about it, which would be really nice because the YouTube money goes way up, way down all the time, whereas the Patreon is much more steady. So, I'm trying to push that would be great. We need, I think, 45 a month to get there. So like if a few people, like if 11 people joined at $5, we could get it done. So, yep. All right. Well, enjoy the January credits, which I just finished today. I spent a good chunk of today working on them. And I hope to see all of you on Wednesday for the final episode of Batty Bodie's Dinosaur Delusions. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovand, Phil Ravara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Denny5252, Eleron Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostock Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Robert Carpenter, Sphincter of Doom, Vollus, Strawberry Vein, and Ita V. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.